Transport and Neil. They'll introduce themselves again in a minute, from North Somerset Council. Now, no specific agenda. We have 3 bus services here in Portishead, as you know, the X4, the X5 and the X10. So doubtless they're going to get discussed this evening, and I'll probably go through in order in terms of the 3 services. And play it from there then, and just see sort of how things unwind and what we can discuss. Whether you want to talk about the bus service improvement plan, the BSIP plan, there'll be obviously more information coming in relation to that later. But we'll kick off with the introductions, so I'll let the 2 introduce themselves.
Thank you very much, Mike. So I've met a number of you already, either at the last meeting or since. My name is Hannah Young. I'm as Mike has said, a councillor in Clevedon for Clevedon South Ward, and also the executive member for Highways and Transport. I started that role in May. Thought it was a little laugh.
A heckle.
Away. People did promise me they'd be heckling from the front row, but I didn't expect it to start quite so soon. So yes, had that role since May. Very soon after I joined the council in May, I was invited to the last of these bus meetings. Obviously I've been on a very steep learning curve since then with the BSIP team and with the wider transport team, and obviously very happy to come here today to talk to you about your views of the services, what we need to do next, and also to pass on any information we can and answer your questions. So thank you very much for inviting us back here today.
Hello everyone, thanks for having us back again. I didn't think you would, but it's nice to be back. I'm Neil Summers, I'm the Senior Transport Planning Officer for North Somerset County Council, and I am the Bus Services Lead.
Thank you both. Okay, so the X4 service, 3 an hour. I use it regularly, and I personally find it quite a good service. I live up on the top of Avon Way, West Hill, and so I catch it from there. And yes, one trundles along Sheepway, one trundles through Foothill, and things could be improved in terms of the speed, and of course the BSIP plan in relation to some of the road improvements. Beggarbush Lane is now operative, but there are others, which no doubt we'll hear about later. Whether that will speed up the buses remains to be seen, but I have some ideas in relation to how things could be improved. Maybe one bus an hour goes through Sheepway, the others go straight down Portby 100. I'm not suggesting Pill necessarily gets cut out, but the X3 of course used to do that. There, you know, I'm open to the floor really. Let's get the discussion going. I think the 3 an hour is adequate. I know that they're looking to get it down to 15 minutes for an hour, so that it's sort of turn up and go, rather than all of us watching our watches and getting out to the bus stops and hoping that it turns up. There are obviously things that could be probably improved in terms of tightening the timetable. I often find, and I'm sure you all do as well, that you sit down there on Coombe Road whilst the driver has a cigarette or just waits and kills a few minutes, and then we trundle up the hill. So yes, I mean, for those that live in Redcliffe Bay and such like, it's a long journey. It's about an hour, isn't it, into the city, and things could be improved, as no doubt they're trying to do with some of the road improvements. But are they working? Let's kick that one off. Are they working? Is the Beggarbush Lane cutting that minute or a few seconds away from the timetable? Is it improving things?
Okay, so just on the infrastructure elements of the bus service improvement plan, Beggarbush Lane, we haven't done the early monitoring yet. There will be a monitoring process to it, but because of additional roadworks in the wider area, it obviously becomes quite difficult to assess the impact of that particular change on the bus straight away. So there is a plan to evaluate that in slightly later on, but we don't have that data at the moment, and the team are going to be looking at it very shortly. In terms of the wider infrastructure changes, one of the things that I did want to just update people on tonight quickly is last time I came, I think there were people saying, is something going to happen to the Portby 100, is something going to happen to Markham Road? That's obviously been in the proposals for for some time, and you'll have seen various papers that have gone before my time on the council to the executive and so on, talking about the schemes to take minutes off the journey at those locations. What's happening there at the moment is that we've reorganised the programme slightly, so those potential changes won't be looked at again at this current time. As you'll know, I think you'll already know, the infrastructure changes, the road changes that are being made through the bus service improvement plan are taking place over a 2-year period. It's going to take a long time to get through them all. Markham Road was originally going to be early next year, but what we've said is we're going to put it back in the programme. At the moment, we've had some early feedback from ward councillors on the very, very initial proposals that we used to secure the funding, and on the basis of that, are looking in much more detail at the data, and going back and doing some more data collection on questions that have been raised about if we do make changes in those locations, will it really deliver the benefit that we need for the bus service, so that we can make a full business case if the data's there at the appropriate time, and come back and consult with people at that point. So at the moment, one of the reasons Rob Thompson is not here today is not because he wouldn't love to see you, but really there's nothing further that's going on currently in respect of his area of the infrastructure changes around that element. I don't know whether Neil has any other comment about whether there's any improvement in the speed of the X4 or anything else that you wanted to say about the X4.
I think you pretty much covered it. It's a bit too early to say about Beggarbush Lane. We've not really had anything back as of yet. It will come, I'm sure, but not yet, no.
What about the Random Hill one that's now kicking around?
We haven't got the date in yet at this stage. Sorry, when is it going to take place?
Well, if and when.
Random Hill is still in the programme. I can look up the date while we're here, but it's not imminent, I don't believe.
And this is, am I right in thinking, putting a dedicated bus lane in towards the Random Hill in both directions, coming back up the hill as well, towards the lights?
I can check that for you. Yeah, check that for you during the meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we have some questions from the floor in relation to the X4? Yes, I mean, just take us, ask questions away.
Right, well you said it takes an hour to get into Bristol, roughly on the X4.
Thereabouts, yeah.
If you live up this end of Portishead, it takes a lot longer because you either have to walk to Sheepway or to dual carriageway or Sainsbury's,
Yeah.
or catch an X5, which hopefully will connect with an X4. We've got 3 X4s an hour coming into Portishead now, none of them coming up Bristol Road.
Yeah.
And I did mention this to you, Neil, at the end of the last meeting. Why is this end of Portishead just left out of everything now? And
Yes.
everything is, we can cut time by not going down Sheepway or cutting it here and there, when we're still having to traipse for 10 minutes in all weathers, and when it's dark it's not very pleasant.
Yes,
Just to
because
catch a bus into Bristol.
when the X10 was introduced, you lost the 59, didn't you? The
Well, we
Nailsy bus.
don't want to have to catch 2 buses
No, I
to get
appreciate
into
that,
Bristol.
yeah.
This is the second biggest town in North Somerset.
I
And
know.
here we are in
Yeah.
this state of affairs when for years it worked.
Sadly,
Now
we
all
don't
of a sudden it
have
doesn't.
representatives from First here.
So I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Neil, you did say
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. I did take your question to First almost straight away after the meeting and proposed exactly what you said. There's no appetite to do it from First because their answer is that they fixed the X4. The X4's not broken, so don't fix it, which I agree with you. I think that, and obviously what you were saying as well, Mike, that I think that we could have a system where we have, I don't know, an X2, an X3 and an X4. They don't all have to do the same thing. And I am working hard to try and influence that decision. And I did actually manage to convince the guy that I work with at First Pass very closely about network changes to actually attend this meeting online. And unfortunately, he's not here to answer it, and I'm happy to answer it. But there's no appetite from them, from a commercial perspective, for them to do it. That's not to say they're not going to do it, because I do keep on about it. You know, I keep going normally until I get what I want. And I generally think that you've got a really good point there. So without them actually being able to give you their corporate answer to it, I suppose, I can only tell you that I'll just keep trying. But initially they said no. That doesn't mean never, it just means not now.
Is it possible that, I mean, I live down the marina and we lost our service, the same as Bristol Road lost it. You know, as your suggestion, if they could route
I agree,
one bus that way, one bus that
Yeah, I
way,
agree,
and not go down Sheepway,
Yeah.
which gets Sheepway gets a fantastic bus service,
Yeah.
you know, and we get
Hardly any
nothing.
people.
No,
Yeah,
nobody
yeah,
ever
yeah.
gets on there either.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but it is a commercial service. I know there's BSIP and stuff involved in it, but the X4 isn't a massive BSIP sort of receivant as such, as some as the other routes, like the X5 is, for example. But I can influence, but ultimately it's not my decision. But I totally agree with you. I found some old timetables actually from a couple of years ago when I was doing some research, and you actually had the X3, the X3A, the X3X. That's more or less what you people want, isn't it? Something like that. So that's sort of what I'm trying to push for you, so that one can be fast, one can go the slow way, one can come this way, and I don't see why it can't. It's got 8 vehicles on it, the X4. They could easily be. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but I've worked in the bus industry for 25 years. I've been a scheduler, so I know it's doable. You know, so I'll keep pushing it until it gets there. But the answer to me that it runs okay, let's not change it. Well, it might run okay, but it's not what the people want. So if the people, you need to provide something that the people want, and then it would run even better. That's my attitude towards it. So I'll keep going, but I can't promise anything.
So when you say there isn't really an appetite for them to do it, presumably we would all say that's because they don't have to be passengers on it. And that's always
Yeah.
going to be your problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
The people who do the deciding are not bus users
Yeah.
most of the time. And so I don't know how...
live
how
in Portishead.
Yes.
Yes.
The when the bus was scheduled the way it is now, and I'm affected because it no longer comes down all the way down Nor Road, the person that changed the route lived in Southampton.
It doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. So, like I said, they're hard work, First West of England. And like I said, you are spot on. It looks good on paper, the X4. It does. You look at the data, it looks really nice and looks good, and that's how they see it. But they don't know the people. They're not here. They're not hearing what you're saying. I pass on what you say, but they really need to be here. And like I said, I managed to convince him to come. And obviously they can't get online, which is unfortunate, but I will definitely drag him here in person next time.
Good.
Right. I've been on the X4 3 times today, and each journey represented what is wrong with the service. The first bus I caught was intentionally the 10:20 from Coombe Road. I left there at 11 o'clock. 2 buses came the other way, right behind each other, and they went up the hill, were never seen again. Secondly, I came back from Bristol from Anchor Road at 3:30. The bus was a red single-decker. It was full of students. What I will say in deference to the younger generation, when all the oldies got on, they got up and gave us their seats, which impressed me very much indeed. But that bus was absolutely rammed full. Some students got off at Boweraston for the college. Some got off at the top of Brownham Hill 20 minutes later because it took the bus 20 minutes to get up Brownham Hill because it was so loaded.
Was that just the
finally-
speed of the vehicle, Philip?
Sorry?
Was that just because of the speed of the vehicle, or was
Yeah,
there a traffic
it
hold
was just so overloaded,
It was
so
crawling up.
underpowered, it couldn't get up Roundham Hill any faster.
Right.
It took 20 minutes from Boweraston to the top of, by the Ashton Court.
If I can
Just to get
add,
up there.
if
One
I
more
can
thing,
add- oh,
one more
sorry.
thing, yeah. And I came down here this evening, I tried to get online, as Mike said, there were technical difficulties, I couldn't type the code into the Zoom box. I thought, right, I'm going to come down to the meeting. I looked on my bus times app and saw there was one leaving Waitrose. I thought, right, I'll get that in 15 minutes. I go out to the bus stop. On the digital display, it says, next bus, Portishead, 1909, cancelled. If I'd taken any notice of that, I wouldn't be here now. I just knew that my bus was on its way because of the bus times app. Now, I think those 3 journeys represent what is wrong with the X4 service. We should have double-deckers on, not single-deckers, especially when we know we're getting near peak times. the reliability still is not there, and the digital displays, well, quite honestly, they're wrong more than they're right.
If
So,
I can add to
Thank
your
you,
comment,
Philip.
if I can add to that, we just walked up now because we don't get a bus down the marina, so we walked all the way up, and the double decker went past
Yeah.
completely empty. So yes, they should have double deckers on at right times, but they should have single decks on in, you know, when there's
Yeah.
not the need for it. So they've got it the wrong way round.
They have.
I can also add to this with an experience my sister had last week. She caught the bus in from Long Ashton, changed at Ashton Gate, single decker came along, packed full of students, as you rightly say, and of course they're all getting off at the next stop at Clarence Road, but they weren't allowed on. Bus full. So all 6 people, including my sister, were left there for another 20 minutes to wait for the next bus. So yes, whether the driver just didn't think, because they could have just got on and packed in and stood there for a minute as it went round the corner to drop all the students off, because of course the bus probably emptied there, because they were all going to the art college, aren't they?
Well, yes, sorry, first aren't here tonight to hear you say that.
Yeah. Me too.
I'm here to hear you though, and I will pass that on. And the reason I'm smiling is not because of your misfortunate adventures with the X4, simply that I've been banging this drum at First West of England meetings every week that, you know, your service is not good enough, you shouldn't be serving single deckers on double decker routes. They do it all the time. They do it on the flagship X1, they do it on the 7 in Weston, they put up bus full, all this, I hear this on a daily basis. First excuse or reason for this is that there are currently 6 double deckers off the road. Okay, so from our point of view at the council, we've said to them, you're a big enough group, PLC, to draft in other vehicles from other depots. Yeah, they have done that, but not 6 of them, only 2. Yeah, so we're not even 50% of what we are short, but it was confirmed last
Can I
week.
just comment that
Yeah.
Stagecoach import their vehicles, the S6, which is now the number 9 from Portway to Bridlington. It's run by the S6 that have been brought in from Swindon
That's right, yeah.
to Oxford.
That's
So
right.
they can do it, so why can't First?
I totally agree with you, and every week I say to them, when they give these excuses about single deckers and they've got to put the paint somewhere and stuff like that, and I've said to them, you need more, and it was actually confirmed last week that they are getting more. Didn't give me a number more, it might only be 1, I don't know yet, but they said they are going to get more, and I totally agree with you. They're a big enough group, they're one of the biggest bus companies in the UK, they've got enough vehicles. I mean, we've even given them some sort of like direction of where in the group they could go to, like York, for example, has just done a load of electric vehicles, so all of those vehicles have been displaced. We'll have them, thanks very much, you know? So things like that, we do tell them this, they say they're going to fix it, it's been going on actually since April, it's only that it's started to trickle into other routes now because it's become more of a problem. It's actually been a problem on the flagship X1 now for over 6 months, and the 7 in Weston, and they promised us they're going to sort it. When? We don't know, you know, but what I would need from people really is, I know people say, oh, they don't listen, but people, they tell me all the time, don't get any complaints about the X4, nobody tells us the bus is full, nobody tells us the single deckers, what are you talking about, Neil? So people need to go to them and register, even if they ignore you, it's there in their systems. I know they're good at ignoring it, 'cause they ignore me sometimes as well, so I know they're quite good at doing that, yeah? You put it in their system, then when I bring it up, it'll be in there, so they find it. I know that sounds like claptrap, but honestly, you need to tell them and complain about it, because if I don't have the ammunition, they simply tell me, what are you talking about? You know, we're going to get to the X5 in a minute, something that Heather told me yesterday, that was news to me until yesterday, so I had to quickly do some investigating, so I've got some answers for tonight, and like I said earlier, I did manage to convince the first guy to come here, but he's managed to get out of it because there's no internet. So I can only tell you what I do from the council's point of view, and if I'm honest with you, I'm sick of the single deck thing. It's a nice problem to have, isn't it, to have your buses so busy that you need double deckers,
Not really,
you know?
can't get on them.
No, but in general, it's a nice problem to have that you haven't got buses that nobody's getting on and you might be taking them away. And we, from the BSIP point of view at the council, it's growing, the bus network's growing, it's getting back to nearly pre-COVID levels, and if you go and do something stupid like put a single decker on a double decker route, it's going to make you and other people think twice about getting the bus again. That's not what we want.
So I was going to just say, oh, shall I speak or not?
Well, Sue was going to be speaking next.
No.
Okay, please carry on then.
I was just going to say, I'll just briefly share my experience with you, which I wasn't going to bother to do,
No,
but
please do.
it's important into what you've just said. So the other Tuesday, I got to the bus stop at 8:15 to get the 8:30.
Which is in the morning, obviously.
Yes, in
yeah.
the morning, which didn't turn up. So I thought, oh, I'll just have to... Now, at the top of Knorr Road, we haven't got an electronic thing, so you just have to look on your
Yeah.
first app, and that bus was shown as coming,
Okay.
but it didn't come. So I then waited the next 25 minutes until just before 9 o'clock,
Okay.
and that one didn't come either.
Wow.
So by the time the bus came, at
An
about
hour.
9:25, I had been standing there for an hour and 15 minutes just to get down to town.
Okay. When was that? Tuesday?
So it was about 3
Last
weeks
Tuesday.
ago.
Okay. If you can give me, before we go, because I'm trying to write this down, but I'm trying to listen
Yeah.
as well, so I don't want
Right,
to be rude.
what I
But if
wanted
you
to
can, I
say
need
was-
this. If you can just sort of tell me at the end, so I can
Yeah.
write it down, so I can then go
The
and...
reason that I'm mentioning it is that when I then came home, I got to the bus stop and I didn't know what time the bus was coming, but because they're supposed to be every 20 minutes, I thought, oh, that's fine.
Mm.
When I got to the bus stop, the next bus coming from Iceland was shown as being 39 minutes away. So obviously there was something wrong there.
Yeah.
So I sat down and had a coffee, and
No, no, pass
in
it.
fact I met your wife and she offered me a lift, but she had to go shopping. So I was still there when that bus came along, and it was followed 2 minutes later by the next X4. So the next day I phoned up the the customer services,
Yeah.
and I mentioned to them what had happened to me. So the reason that the first 2 buses to go down to town didn't turn up was that one was already late, and so instead of coming all the way around Knorr Road and picking us all up, it had just been
Cut short.
cut short. So presumably, I would imagine it came up Haven Way and then went down again and went to Bristol. And the second bus, which didn't turn up, was apparently involved in an accident, and so it couldn't come. Now, obviously, this is the sort of thing that you can't help. But what annoyed me so much was when I said to the lady about, okay, so what about the bus back? I said it didn't come until 1:30. And she had a look and she said, no, it came at 1 o'clock. So I said, no, it didn't come at 1 o'clock. I said it wasn't even shown as coming at 1 o'clock, it was shown as being in 39 minutes time.
So you accused of lying when, yeah.
And she said, I'm just looking on the records here, and I can assure you that it came at 1 o'clock. And I said, well, I can assure you it didn't, because I was having a coffee at 1 o'clock. So my point to you is, if we're phoning up and complaining about stuff, but the records aren't correct, they're never going to take any notice of me or anybody saying it came at 1:39, because on their records, handily, they've got that it came at the right time. So that's my first point. And my second point is, you say, and I'm sure you do, that you speak to them a lot about this, that and the other.
Yeah. Every week.
But how is anybody ever going to get them to be any different? Because basically it just doesn't seem as if they're interested. And we've all said, whenever we've come to these bus meetings and then left, that they can do exactly what they want. And nobody seems to be able to do anything about it. And I think this is why people are so fed up.
And we're very disappointed not to have the first representative here.
Yeah, so am I.
Heather, you wanted to...
Yes, can I expanding?
Yes, we realise that we've already expanded.
Would you mind if I just...
Hello. Oh, that's it. Expanding on what Neil was saying just now about single deckers, I sent him an email a couple of days ago because I had a message from somebody who works at Weston College who was very concerned because the single deckers are being used. I know we were talking about the X4, but I'm now talking about the X5.
Can we come on to the X5 later, just to wrap up the X4 first?
Okay, if that's what you want.
Yeah, I prefer to.
I thought we'd gone. Yeah.
Well, I guess it's coming to an end because you want to say something about the X4 service?
Well, I want to talk about I just want to talk about first generally, okay, because it seems to me that there's been an awful lot of issues related to first. At previous meetings here in the folk out here, I have actually said, why are we so in bed with first? Basically, first seemed, and ever since they started to go for these sort of contracts years and years ago, what other operators were doing was they were sending in cheaper buses to run the first routes in and around Bristol where I used to live. And basically what was then happening was, because first bus were saying, well, it's not worth us taking them on and so on and so forth. But then what would happen is it first would find out what times those buses were running at, and they would put a convenient bus on just a little bit earlier to undercut them. Okay? What I was going to ask in this is, why are we so in bed with First? What penalties are First getting from the councils for not supplying the services which they have said that they will do? Whether it's the X4, X5 or X2001, doesn't matter. They're not supplying the services. Why are we still in bed with them?
Can I answer that? And thank you, Dave, because I did want to come in after the last question on what are we actually doing to make First do what we need them to do. Some of you may have seen that we issued an improvement notice to First in September after the bus changes and when the single deckers were a particular problem. And we do issue penalties on a regular basis to First. I don't have the figures in front of me, but it is hundreds of thousands of pounds.
Do you mean they get a fine?
They
Yeah,
get a
massive
fine.
fine.
They get a
£250,000
massive.
last time.
Yeah, absolutely. For the services they're not delivering. Now that's good in one sense because we get the money back, but it doesn't help any of us if we don't have the service.
We don't
does
want
it?
the money back.
So no, we don't want the money back. We want the service instead. But please let me assure you that they do receive penalties on a regular basis. Why are we in bed with them? It's because we are in what's called an enhanced partnership, which is a legal agreement which we are part of. The rest of the West of England, I know I've talked to some of you about the West of England Combined Authority. So because our bus routes don't just go across North Somerset, they obviously go into Bristol and cover, go into other areas. So we have to be in partnerships and agreements about how those services are going to run across those boundaries. So we enter the partnership. First are one of the operators within that partnership, and we obviously go into agreements around some of the services that we will put money into through both WACA and ourselves and enhance in order to try to recover the service since COVID. And that is a number of the services like the X5 and like the X4 has a small enhancement to it at the moment, meaning we put a bit of money in, but actually we're trying to run it as trying to run it as a commercial service. But please be assured there is definitely behind the scenes and through that enhanced partnership data that comes back to us, and based on that data about minutes lost and all of those other things, we issue fines on a regular basis.
Thank you.
Can I just add to that? I probably should have said that, but it didn't come up. The last fine that they had was well over £200,000 for not actually performing. That's why we have weekly meetings with them. But I would like to say also that a lot of the issues that we're facing with First Bus are actually depot related rather than First Bus as an entity. I know that doesn't really help, it's the same cake differently sliced, but the people that I work with, which are the commercial department, the arm of First Bus, where we develop the times, the routes and the enhanced partnership that Hannah's just mentioned and all that, unfortunately the depot are not performing where they should be, and that's the issue. Like even this evening before I come here, I was talking to the guy that I said I was meant to bring and he didn't come, right? Because of the IT issue, but it is a depot issue. It's an operations issue in that depot, which is down to First to sort out, not us, not the council, not you lot. It's down to them. They know that. We've made that perfectly clear. They don't want to pay fines. They're in it to make money, aren't they? But the one good thing that Hannah said about the enhanced partnership that really needs to be pushed home is that when they don't perform and situations like this happen, it does flag up, and they do get fined. I can assure you of that. But I would also like to add, that situation you're talking about where the bus says it's going to come, that's called ghosting. That's actually something that doesn't just affect Portishead, it affects the whole region, including WECA. There are people in the background that are not necessarily First related. It's like a software company that First used. I'm not defending them, but technically it's not their gift to give. It's down to the two companies, iDocs and Journeo. And I'll tell you the difference. If you've got the orange writing, that's iDocs. If it's the more fancier one, that's Journeo, That's how I remember it anyway. And there are issues with that system. We've recently fixed a load of them issues. I don't know how, but in Western we had the same problem where it would say the X1 is coming. I myself would stand there and it would, exactly like you, it would disappear. So I know there's issues with that. I actually thought they'd been resolved, but from what you've told me tonight, clearly there's still an issue in this side of the area, so that's good for me to take back, because I will contact Journeo and IDOCS about that to find out what's going on, because that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah. I mean, I think I was mostly concerned about the fact that, as you said, you can complain, but if the records are somehow not correct,
Yeah.
and there I am complaining, and there she's saying, well, no, it came at 1 o'clock. I mean, you know, how do you proceed?
I've had that situation myself where they've literally been saying to me, I've been in a meeting and I've said, I got the bus here, for example, it should have come at 12 o'clock, exactly like that, and they've gone, oh no, it did come. And I'm like, no, because that's broke, that's what I'm saying to you, that system, IDOCS, that they're using, isn't working because it thinks the bus is, it's like tracking, you know, like sat
but
nav
of
and
course,
that the
what
bus.
it makes you think is
Can we move on,
that they're
please?
just sort of lying about that information.
Yeah.
Okay, we've had half an hour on the X4, so we'll move on to the X5 now. And when we had the last meeting in here in June, they were planning to make the change in September, which they did, which is to cut out the M5 stretch and go through Gatton and Coningsbury. I'm sure most of you have probably tried it out, and it's a bit of a convoluted journey, but anyway, it is what it is. Again, it cut out the triangle visit up on top of the hill, which wasn't very convenient for the likes of me and I'm sure others. So, where are we with the X5? Do we feel it's an improved service or not? Heather?
Yes, as I was saying, I sent an email to Neil the other day because I had a message from a lady who works at Weston College complaining about the X5 now being single decker, because the students at Weston College are leaving at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, not being able to get on. A lot of them are going into Bristol to get home and not getting home till 7:30 at night, which is, to be honest, is unacceptable. That kids are out, teenagers are out in the dark trying to get home via Bristol. And she was most concerned about this, and I did send her a copy of her post to you about this. So I don't know, and also I did say in an email to you today that if I was a suspicious person, I would think that maybe that filling up these buses so that they can't pick anybody else up helps them make their time an hour and a half to get from Portishead to Weston-super-Mare, which I think is a crazy time, to be honest. But if they're not picking anybody else up, maybe they're making their time. And like I said, if I was a suspicious person, I think that's probably why they were doing it. And not using a double-decker and picking people up that they're supposed to pick up.
Have any of you travelled on the X5 after it arrives in Weston-super-Mare on its loop around the top end of Weston-super-Mare? Yes, likewise, Christine. And I can see why they don't use a double-decker. It goes round numerous right-angle bends, and it's a very tight journey going up to the quarry in South Road and top end of Weston-super-Mare. And they've obviously tagged on 2 further bus routes, the one up there on the top of Weston-super-Mare and the one on Locking Castle route, which is also full of right-angle bends, and you can get quite queasy on the top deck of a double-decker when they used to run double-deckers through that. So yes, I mean, I was told by one of the drivers that that's one of the reasons why they're not using double-deckers any longer, because of this extended route.
Crazy that they're leaving kids behind just because of a couple of, maybe a route change.
Yes, I wasn't obviously aware of the full buses.
I think it's dreadful to keep the kids leaving them.
Yes, please.
I can speak I would just say, that going all round the houses in Weston-super-Mare for most people in Portishead and Clevedon is a total waste of time, and they could save an awful lot of time on their bus route if they had a separate local town service for Weston-super-Mare, which is what they had originally.
Yes.
I am very grateful that it does now go past Cadbury Garden Centre and Coningsbury, because we have no longer got the little local bus that used to do that. So that is one good thing, but I don't see that they need to go all round the houses in Weston-super-Mare. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't need the mic.
Well, it's for the loop and stuff.
Hello. I was going to say exactly what that lady just said. I really don't see the point in going in and out and up and down when they could have their own local service. The other question was, you know, you said about the going in and out, how the roads and everything, windy, windy roads, but obviously I know that a double decker is much taller than a single decker. Is there that much difference in the width?
I think there is a bit in the length and the width.
Could I ask Neil to answer some of the questions that have come up so far?
Please do.
And just before he does, I think one of the things that is really difficult for all of us at the moment is we are still in recovery mode here. I know we're talking about bus service improvement plans, but in reality, we all know services were slashed partly because of COVID and partly because of commercial pressures. And actually, we are still in recovery mode. And so, while I would love to be able to say we can have this service here and we can have a Western Town service, we're not in that place right now. So that might make sense in the longer term if we can create a network that is flourishing and has all the patronage. That means, you know, we've got those services becoming more commercial. But at the moment, step by step by step, we're trying to get to a point where we don't have to subsidise quite so much on things like the X4 or the X5, in fact, so that we can then move to a stage of going, right, is there any money that we can do something else? And so, while I appreciate, I really, you know, I genuinely appreciate it's not ideal. It's not that we can just say, great, let's put another one over here and we'll just have this route go direct. Neil, I know, wants to come in around some of the detail around the single double decker point and the Western End.
The bus thing, the width is the same. The length, believe it or not, the double decker is shorter than the single decker. Believe it or not. I know it doesn't look it, but it is. I can give you the exact length if you want. The deckers are 10.2 metres. The single deckers are they're 10.95 metres. They're just under 11 metres. They are technically almost a metre longer. But yeah, it's a metre, but yeah, what's a metre between friends? But anyway, I want to pick up on what Heather mentioned about the X5. That was actually yesterday. He sent me that email. And I said to you when I got it, I didn't know, I wasn't aware of any issues that you raised about loadings on the X5, which again takes me back to the weekly meeting that we have with First, where they've not mentioned that at all. They failed to mention that. And our weekly meeting is Wednesdays, which is tomorrow, so I'll bring that up tomorrow. What I did do as an evidence trail, so I could actually answer some of it, just in case First didn't come, because I didn't know I thought they were going to come, but obviously they're not here, so. I got a colleague at First to print off patronage figures for the X5 from when it changed literally to about a week ago. And Heather is quite right, there is clearly a problem on 2 PM journeys from Western, which are the 1520 and I think it's the 1640, where not every day, but there are certain days where that bus exceeds its capacity, which until yesterday afternoon I wasn't aware of that. I am aware of it now. We're talking about it now. I will be talking about it tomorrow. I did mention this afternoon when I spoke to the head of network, which was meant to be tonight, that, you know, you brought this up, I'd done this investigation, I'd found this out. They agreed there's an issue, but the problem is, again I'm smiling, but the problem is they don't have enough double deckers to do what they've got now, do they? So by doing that, it's just added to the problem that they already have, which was a bit of a headache from my point of view, because I'm still trying to get them on the X1 and the X4, and now we've got to get them on the X5, because you're quite right, the situation that's happening shouldn't be happening. So I feel that there is a way that they can jig things around to make those journeys double deck. Also the journey in the morning, I think it's the first one from Portishead at 7 AM or 15:15, I can't remember whether it does the loop before or after, I can't remember what time it is, it's about that. That also, on certain days, needs to be double deck. But the other journeys that you mentioned, they were busy, but they weren't capacity, yeah? But there is definitely 3 journeys on at least, I would say at least 3 of the 5 days that need to be double decked. So I will look at that and I'll work with them to get double deckers on them journeys.
Could they not, maybe on the busy ones in the afternoon, could they not put 2 single deckers on so that the kids can get home? you know, within, say, 20 minutes of one another or something?
And where is home? And are most of them getting off in Congsbury, in Yatton, or are they travelling right through to Clevedon?
Most of them are Clevedon. Portishead as well, but the
Clevedon,
majority
Portishead.
is clear. I mean,
Yeah.
I figure I can remember off the top of my head, Clevedon was like 1,300 a week, which is quite a lot. Portishead not far behind it. So between the two towns, you're looking at 2,500, 3,000. You know, and when you're talking about a bus that only carries 68 people, yeah, you know, you've got to be a mathematician to work it out. It doesn't work, does it? But like I said, I didn't know this until yesterday, and I wanted to get some answers because I knew I was going to be asked about it. And all I can say is that I've mentioned it, I've flagged it. They've sort of run away with their tail between their legs because they failed to mention it. But yet again, this is the people I talk to aren't the depot people, and you know, we need to sort it out. It's as simple as that, and they need to put double deckers on them. And I'm confident that if you jig some things around, even before we get enough double deckers, even if they nick one off the X1 for a couple of hours, it's not ideal, but until they get enough deckers, I think that the situation we've got here on the X5 is a bit, I think it should take precedence over that. That's what I feel.
Are you saying that they knew this was happening all along and
I
they
don't
just
know.
were ignoring it? The
Well,
fact that
they
they were
didn't-
leaving
they-
kids behind?
They didn't tell us, put it that way. So until
It's
you mentioned it,
disgraceful.
until you mentioned it to me,
Absolutely
I'm not going to
disgraceful.
say that they were none the wiser, but it's funny how they never mentioned it until you did, and then when I mentioned it today, they were a bit like, oh right, yeah. So then, you know, they have the data before I have the data, so you can make your own assumptions about that, but I was not aware of it until you told me about it yesterday. I'd heard a few sort of, you know, grumbles and moans and stuff, but not to the severity that you told me yesterday, which I then investigated, found that out, and then I was a bit like, no, this is not on. So you can make whatever assumption you like. I know what I think, you know, but it's not on.
Well,
It's
there's
not
a-
acceptable, and
There's
it's
a
got to
safety.
stop.
There's a safety issue.
Yeah, I
involved in
agree.
this. Absolutely a safety issue.
I agree.
involved.
And Western College, I did contact Western College as well, and they gave me quite a scathing review of First Bus and the X5, which was not nice to hear, but was good to hear because I needed to hear it. What I have done is I've asked Western College if what they basically said to me, they can leave out some of the bleeps, if they basically said to me, if they could put that in writing to me, and then I will take it to my boss, and then they can escalate that within First Group, because that, regardless of, you know, whether it's college students or not, or, you know, yourself, that to me is a bit, it's off, it's not on. And if they're doing that there, where else is that happening that I don't know about? And that's why I'm saying, you know, I know your experience wasn't good with the complaining and stuff like that, but you've got to complain. You've got to hold them to account for what they do. So if you know someone that has a child that uses that bus and goes to college, they've got to complain about it. Not to us, to them, yeah? And then they have to show us the complaints they have. They don't just show us the performance, they have to show us, you see. And the other thing they do as well with performance is they will send us a percentage of mileage. They'll say, oh, we lost 2% on that route. Now, anyone that doesn't know the buses, I've done it for over 20 years, so I know 2%'s a lot, yeah? So what I've started to do since I've worked here, and I said to you last time when I come here, it's a new team here, we've got a lot of experience here now with myself, we've got somebody new as well with my team that assists me, and he's a busman as well, and there's nowhere to hide for First Bus anymore, yeah? Because when they say to me, oh, we lost 2.74%, and most of you sit here and think, well, that's pretty good, isn't it, 2.7? No, it's not good. 2.74% of a 15-minute frequency is 1 in 6, yeah? So, like, for example, they lost 5% on another service, yeah, that was every half an hour, that's 1 in 4. So what I've now said is stop sending percentages, stop sending graphs, stop sending figures, and you know about this, don't you? And I've said to them, I want the raw data of each journey that didn't run. So like your journey that you mentioned, your journey, so then I can match it to the information that we have, and then when we go into the meetings, they'll then sit there, like this X5 example, yeah? They'll say, oh no, I don't know what you're talking about, and I'll go, like I did today, well there you go, That's what I'm talking about, because it matches the same data. So when they used to give all these figures and bamboozle everybody at the council with all these sort of figures and sums and stuff, they didn't have bus people here that now understand it. So I've only been here 10 months, but it's a work in progress and there is nowhere for them to hide anymore. I promise you that there is nowhere for them to hide. I hold them to account for everything they do whenever I'm told anything.
Good.
I can assure you it will take time, yeah, but 5% now actually means something to us here at the council. So we understand it's worse than it is.
I've also sent you messages, copies of messages, for people that have actually been run past by the X5, left on the bus stop.
Yep.
With plenty of room on there, but the bus driver must be tied for time or whatever, and they've been left on the stop.
Okay, speaker at the back, please.
Yeah, a couple of other points about the X5. One of the other issues with kids coming out of college is that there's a strange thing with the timetable, that the buses run pretty much every hour. But there's one, I think it's 4:45, and the next one's not till 5:10. So anyone coming out at 4 obviously can't catch the 2:45, who's got quite a long wait. So that's obviously contributed as well to some of the issues we've just been hearing about. But also, I've been looking back at some of the old timetables. And up to July last year, the buses to and from between Portishead and Weston were scheduled to take 55 minutes. Since then, we've had 4 timetable changes, and it's gone up to 1 hour and 20, which is about 45% increase, which is a huge difference. That seems to go against everything we hear about the aims of the BSIP and the objectives. And I take your point that, yes, there are issues coming out of COVID and services have to be funded, but surely the intention with all of the routes is to get them as quick and as efficient as possible. And it just seems like we've got 2 routes shoehorned into one. If we could go back to one that was just Portishead, Clevedon, Weston, if we could do that in under an hour, then that's far more attractive to users. And then I guess the other routes could fit into one as well. So you've got the sort of the Knightstone Loop, Weston Village and Yatton. I don't know if that's something that could be raised with them as well.
I think the answer is probably, as I talked about earlier, that is something we can potentially look at in the future, but it would require a lot more funding to be able to do it. Because if we're talking about running 2 routes instead of one. I'll let Neil come in a moment. But I think the other thing that we have seen is at the western end of the route, we've seen patronage has quadrupled, I understand, on the X5. So although we've talked here before, I think, about it being 2 routes rather than one, that's a brilliant solution if we can get there. But the economics of it just aren't viable as we currently have things. And if we can change things by looking at the ways in which we can reduce the minutes and make it faster, then obviously it's something that the team will continue to work on and do work on. Do you want to say anything further?
Yeah, just I totally agree really that the X5 really is what I call the prick stick route. It seems to get everything stuck onto it. I totally agree with that. It's not really somewhere where I want it to be. It's got a long way to go where I want it to be. And unfortunately, it does have things stuck onto it because it isn't financially viable to have it separated out currently as we speak. And if it wasn't for BSIP, I'm pretty confident that First would drop the X5 like a stone, and then we would have to try and find a way to fund it. And at the moment that isn't really an option because, as you know, BSIP was spent on other things and stuff like that. Not really my area, that, the capital side of things, but so I better be quiet about that. But
Neil, do you know whether from the ridership figures that you have,
yeah, what
do you know whether
says
they're cutting out the triangle going up the hill, whether that's being negative?
Well, that was initially taken out to obviously put Yatton in, to put Yatton back on the map.
Although we're only talking about 4 or 5 minutes going up.
Yeah, but when you add up like the recovery and the turnarounds and all that, it basically, to put the X5 into Yatton, the truth of the matter is it required another bus. Yeah, because you couldn't do it with 3 buses, even taking Redcliffe Bay and West Hill out, you still couldn't quite do it with 3 buses. So, and even if you took South Road out, I've been doing all this since they changed it in September, taking it out, putting it in, taking it out, putting it in, and the gentleman is spot on, and so is Hannah, and I totally agree. It needs to be 2 buses on one route and 2 buses on another, yeah? And there are options at the moment which I'm discussing with First about April, about how we do that. Maybe one of the Clevedon buses could do Yatton, it's only down the road. Maybe the X5 could go back to being on the motorway. You know, they're all sort of maybes, but there are options there, you know, and if anyone's got any ideas and they've got any options, you know, I'm not an island, I'm more than happy to hear them and take them on board and take them to First. Me personally, I think a Clevedon service could be altered to cover Yatton, and I think the Portishead service needs to be faster again.
Okay.
I agree.
Philip.
My memories of the X5 go right back to 1976 in all its various reincarnations of the 125, the 360. Who remembers the little NW buses that used to run from Highdown School through Mendick Road? I think we even cleared Clapton and Gordano in those days. So that shows how far back. Well, I used to catch the X5, or whatever it was called, from Clevedon Triangle back to Redcliffe Bay. And during the school term, because I was a school teacher, it was quite obvious that for 95% of those journeys for the 5:15, round about then, that arrived in Clevedon in the evening, there would be students getting off that bus. And how did they get from Weston to Clevedon? On the motorway. Now, is there not some legislation that says you shouldn't be carrying standing passengers on the motorway? Well, that's been going on for years, many, many years, and I think that was something that was not really highlighted enough in the 47 years that I was using that service.
Thank you. Any further comments about the X5 then, before we move on to the X10? Okay, X10. So, introduced last September, and 3 buses a day. Heather, you were very instrumental in it. Seems to me, I mean, I saw a double-decker on it the other day, one of the gold ones that they use for the Portway service, Brislington. Leather seats and such like. What was I going to say about the X10? Oh, the only thing I'd kind of comment about it and feel about it is it duplicates the same route going around Clevedon as the X5. And I did wonder whether it could return to its original route, going up Holly Lane and go down Hill Road and round the 6 ways, and back round Clevedon that way. But anyway, right, Heather.
Yesterday, I did a very sort of non-scientific straw poll on Facebook with people in Clevedon and Portishead about whether they would like to see an earlier or a later trip to Cribs on the X10. I had 360 responses, about most in Portishead, perhaps less in Clevedon. A lot more for a later trip than an earlier trip, but quite a few for an earlier trip and quite a few for both. Because there are reasons why people want to stay on late up there, to go to the cinema, have a meal or whatever, and also at the beginning of the day, people would like to think about employment up there. So this is something that I would like it looked into, if that's possible, to see whether Stagecoach are quite amiable about doing this, about putting an earlier one on and a couple of later ones on as well.
Okay. Does anyone else want to say anything about the X10 before?
They were hourly before, just looking at the timetable here, from 2016. And they were hourly. And this was in the days when they were extended to Bristol Parkway Station. You know, it's 36 minutes from Portishead to Bristol Parkway Station.
Probably 56 now.
You know, to get from Portishead to Bristol Temple Meads on 2 buses takes nearly 2 hours.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem possible, and that's before you get on your train to go where you're going.
Okay.
Right.
Can I answer that?
Yes, please.
The X10, firstly, I'd like to thank everyone in Portishead, mainly Heather, for supporting the service. Instead of I gave you the service, you'd support the service. You've done that. I'm fully aware of that. I actually tried to be clever and bring my laptop and download some patronage figures for you to share with you. Luckily, I'm a bit of a nerd and I've managed to remember most of what they are. The X10 currently actually takes about £1,500 a month, which doesn't actually sound a lot, but it's only 3 journeys a day, so it's actually quite impressive. The OAP concession pass is well over 1,000. Sometimes it can peak at nearly 2,000. Yeah, so that gives you a rough idea of how well it's doing on 3 journeys.
Is that 2,000 journeys?
No, 2,000 concessions
Users.
people, yeah, a month, which doesn't sound a lot, but you've got to remember it's only 3 journeys, so it's a lot, you know. There's also been, again, victim of its own success. When it first started, it petered off a little bit in August because people went on holiday, and I know that Stagecoach have had a few little hiccups where they've upset people or missed the route out or just doing things that make me hold my head in my hands and think, you know, you've only got 3 journeys to run, it can't be that hard. But according to them, it clearly has been on some days, which is really sort of frustrating from our point of view. But the stark reality of the X10 is that even though those figures are good and even though those figures are high, it still isn't in a position to support itself, which really saddens me because I thought that those figures would actually get it to where it needs to be. So there's still work that needs to be done on that. And the work that we have done on that since we last met is I've shared some of that information with other bus companies, including Stagecoach. Stagecoach do not have any appetite to take the service on a commercial basis or add any journeys in the current format without support. They've asked me that. I asked them first if they are the incumbent operator of it. First West of England have got their own problems, as we all know, and we've been talking about. So they don't seem too keen either, but there are other people out there, which I can't mention, but there's other operators out there. One who has expressed incredible interest in taking on the service and actually extending the service beyond Cribbs Causeway to Southmead Hospital, which I know is something all of you would like. So I've been working really hard to convince other operators that there's plenty of go in this, I think. And I think that if someone is prepared to take a commercial risk on the X10, then we at the council are prepared in some way to try and give them a little bit of a sweetener to do that. Now, only last week I spoke to the operator and we almost came to an agreement until obviously money comes up, doesn't it? And whenever money comes up in any situation, things can always go a bit sour. That's not to say the operators assured me that they are very keen to do it. They want to do it. They were going to attend tonight, but there's no internet, so they couldn't. But I'll rest assured that ever since I spoke to you last time, I said to you, I'll do everything I can to make that route the route that you want it to be, and I think that you deserve it to be. And you have kept your side of the bargain, which is helping me sell it a lot better, if I'm honest. The other thing I will share with you about the X10 is that it's really at a vital point now where that if it doesn't grow, it's going to fail. Because people, like Heather says, people want to go to work, people want to go to the hospital, people want to do it. People are going to look at it and think like they are now. And I've already started to see a tiny bit of a drop off. It's only minor, but it's enough for me to think, hang on a minute, I'm right about this, I need to do something about this now or it's going to fail. And that, that's where you've had other routes that have done this, where they've not had potential in the time to grow. I think this one's got a lot of potential, and so do other people. So although I can't deliver excellent news for you tonight, I can assure you that I won't give up until I get that route to where it should be, because I genuinely think that people will use it, and the operators that have looked at it have seen that you've kept your word. It's just a matter of finance at the moment, because it is, like Hannah said, it's still uncertain times for operators. The cost of things are astronomical, as we all know, and that's why, almost got an agreement last Friday, but couldn't, simply on some funding issues. I need to speak to my people about that. They've gone away to speak to their people about it. Hannah knows all about this. I've briefed her on it almost on a daily basis. So it is a good news story, it's just not a great news story yet. And if it happens between now and the next meeting, I will find a way of letting you all know the excellent news that I've managed to secure that. These things often happen like this because they've had to go away and rethink what it is that they've offered to do, because I don't have enough money to do what they want to do. So they've either got to make the decision to make more of a risk for them or to sort of trim it down a little bit. But if I'm honest with you, even if they trimmed a little bit of the fat off, it'd still be good. It's still better than what you've got now. And then maybe we could grow on it from there. But it is literally just about money, so we're almost there.
So are you saying, Neil, that the experiment which Stagecoach started in September, finishing in April, could finish in April? They're on a bit of a knife edge, yeah?
I can't really. If you'd have said that to me last week, I'd have said no, it'll be fine. But now I'm a bit like, I need to get the finance arranged so that we can agree a new finance deal, because at the moment, potentially, yeah, that could happen.
So it's use it or lose it?
Use it or lose it. Keep them busy, and it just gives me enough ammunition to keep saying, look, the commercial risk is there.
Can I just come in? I'd be really sad if the message that came out of this meeting was that it was going to end in April. That's definitely a risk, and that's why we're working so hard on making sure that there are other options. But and as you've said, it's something we want to continue. It's not easy to move money around, although there's a lot of money in BSIP in various ways. It is allocated to other things. So one of the things that happened in the last couple of weeks is that we took a paper to the North Somerset Council Executive around BSIP, and what that paper talked about, amongst other things, was that how can we reallocate money if we've got an underspend, for example, in the money allocated to support the fares packages, so things like the birthday bus and the care leavers offers and those sorts of things. Can we use some of that money to spend on other services? So far in BSIP, we've been told that we can't do that, and we can't do that because of the terms of the funding that we get from national government. There has been some relaxation of that over the summer, and we're looking at what we might be able to do. But still, we can only do it if we know that there's a reasonable chance that we're going to be able to sustain that in some way beyond the end of the 2-year period. And I think what Neil's described is something that has, over that period, a chance of becoming a really successful route. If we can get it right, it might take a little while to do it. So if we do need to put some money to try and plug the gap, then certainly I'll be working to see what we can do with WECA and others to see if we can cover that. But it's all about what's the bottom line, what does the figure come back as, and can we do it?
Thank you. Speak up.
I'd like to say I caught the X10 every Saturday from Cribs back to Brisbane to Portishead. Last Saturday there was only 4 people on the bus at 4:10 coming back, and that was a double decker, and there was only 4 of us on there. And most Saturdays there's not even more than 6 people at 4:10 on a Saturday.
I've heard that Saturdays are not great.
I just have an idea about that, which is that I would never go on a Saturday because I always think that the A5 is going to be clogged up in a traffic jam.
Okay.
And then you wouldn't want to sit in that. I know it can happen on other days as well, but Saturday's the day when lots of people are going to lots of places, and you wouldn't really want to sit on a bus in a big long traffic jam. That's only my own opinion, but there might be other people that think that as well, and that could be why it's not as well used on a Saturday.
I'm sure, like a lot of other people in the past, the X5 used to drive up and down to Cribs quite empty frequently.
Can I just answer that? Again, I've not had any reports or seen anything where that has happened, where the X10, unless you tell me different, where it has run late because of that reason. But I'm with you, I think it's because of that reason. I've had that conversation with Stagecoach.
Yeah.
They've told me, no one really uses it on Saturday, we run an extra journey, is it worth it, blah, blah, blah. And I think there is the anxiety, what I call motorway anxiety. I have that myself.
Yes, exactly.
So I think it is that, but I've not ever been told that since its incarnation in June, when we went through the summer period, which is the busiest period. I don't know whether you looking at your hand, because I don't know whether you've heard of that. I've not heard of that happening, which is good. We just need to get the word out there that isn't happening. You use it every Saturday, you said. I don't know whether you've experienced that, because I'm guessing, because no one's told me, but it might be another X5 first thing, I don't know.
Well, it goes into Aston, nobody gets on it, and nobody gets on to come back.
Well, I often get
There's always the anxiety as
on
well
Saturday.
that the 4:10 won't run, and you don't want to be stranded. So you get the early bus
What
back.
we'll do is we'll do some sort of comms on that, put some stuff out there to tell people that, so we can do that, can't we? To say that, you don't need to have that anxiety because there's been no reports of it. And I'll do that, and then there'll probably be a big crash, and everyone will get started for 4 hours. That'll probably be my luck. But yeah, I've not had any reports of that. But I do get that consensus myself, because even I would be a bit, well, I'm not really sure. The one thing I will tell you though is that if the new operator, if we can find someone to take that commercial risk and we can agree a finance package that is both affordable for them and for us, I mean, we don't want them to lose money either, you know, they're a business at the end of the day. There is no mention of a Saturday service, I will tell you that now. It is a Monday to Friday service only, partly because of what you've said, and partly because it ties in with other work that they do that doesn't operate at the weekend. Well, that would be the loss, if you like, if that were to happen. But I think it's not. I mean, it might be if you work Monday to Friday, maybe, but it's a small loss to take compared to the fact that what they're proposing is much better than what we have currently. That's not to say that we couldn't potentially then, you know, if that then works, we could then potentially step in and maybe give them a little push to do it on a Saturday. You know, but at the moment, I just want to get it where you people telling me you want it to go. You want it to run in the peaks, and you want it to go to Southmead Hospital. So that's sort of the blueprint I took away, and that's what I've been working on. And even before this one agreed to do it, there was somebody else that was going to do it, and then they changed their mind, so I went and found somebody else, you see. And that person, like I said, I almost got it over the line. It's frustrating because I probably know by the end of the month. So as soon as I know, I can obviously share that, but at the moment, there's no agreement yet.
Hi. The big issue here, and I think everyone will agree in the room, is the perception of the public. It's what they see, not what you're telling us today. It's like, I'm videoing this now. The people are going to see that you're going to scrap the X10. That's what they're going to see.
That's
and
not
that's
what I said. You
no,
said
I know, but that's how that is the public perception.
Yeah, but with respect, no one. Well, I don't know. Did anybody else think that until he said that? So I never said that, and I never put that out there. You've just put that into people's minds, not me.
So obviously with the X10, you know, there's more passengers that travel on the X10 than there are currently on the Westlink bus that's travelling in and out of Portishead.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
And how much money are you spending on Westlink? What's the figure of loss at the moment for the first 6 months? £1 million? Just for
I don't cover Westlink, so I'll let Hannah do it.
That's not the way that things are commissioned. So Westlink is contracted
Yeah.
as part of our arrangement with WECA, and it's over that 2-year period, and the cost over the whole of the west of England, including North Somerset, over that 2-year period is £8 million for the Westlink
Of a loss.
service. Not of a loss, that's the cost of it, because it's a trial that is being implemented in order that we can see whether it will be.
And that's just for the North Somerset area, yeah?
No. I've just said it's not just, it's for the whole of the west of England, including North Somerset. So that's Bristol, South Gloucestershire, Bath and North East Somerset, and North Somerset. £8 million over that area.
This is, like I'm saying, the perception of the public, that we really want the X10 to work. We know it will work. We want a better service rather than just 3 times a day. We're not advertising it well enough. You've got no boards up at Cribs Causeway to advertise it or advertise Portishead, and the same vice versa. The posters that you use aren't very good, and I've offered myself to create a better poster for Portishead. You know,
Can I cut in there a minute? Sorry to interrupt. I don't mean to be rude. You're quite right. I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to bring it up, because I did actually contact you, and you didn't respond.
I know good with emails. I've got a phone number. Everyone knows it.
Okay. Well, everyone here needs to know that yes, you did offer that. You're quite right. And I took you up on that offer, so I approached you with that offer with the email address that you gave me, and then I contacted Heather and said to her that I'd contacted you and asked you to take you up on your offer, and she said she tried to get hold of you, and you didn't do it. So it's very noble of you to stand there and offer it, but if I'm coming to you and saying, well, let's do it then, let's do it. So you've not done it yet, so would you be prepared to agree to do it now?
That's fine.
Then let's do that.
The trouble is, being a council, obviously you can imagine I get around probably 1,000 odd emails a day.
Okay.
So obviously, and I'm sure you do as
I do get a lot of emails, yeah.
So
you need to sort that out.
So sifting through that down. But like going back to perception, there's a lot of money that WECA have got, that North Somerset got, And it's not good when you're coming back, you're constantly changing bus services, which is not good for the public because it like every 2 months a new timetable is produced. They've changed the times again. It doesn't help people to get back on buses.
Okay.
That's the whole point.
Can I just come back on a few of those points? So I think I said just before you spoke that I would be really sad if what people took away from this meeting was that we were trying to get rid of the X10. When we commission services, we know how much money we have to put into them, and the X10 was contracted until next April because we had a finite amount of money that we could contract for that period. And what we're saying is what happens at the end of next April. And I think what we've sat here and said is we'd really love to continue it. And Neil is working really hard to make sure that we don't lose it at the end of April. And I think if people aren't clear, I've also said that what I'm trying to do to support that is work with WECA to say if we've got money elsewhere in BSIP, can we reallocate it so that we give people the services that they want?
But this is being, what I'm saying is yeah, I can understand the grants and they're allocated to certain areas, and it's very hard to change it. But this is not as though it was today. This has been going on for years. So with the experience of North Somerset and the transport team, they should be well aware of how to try and work around it. I mentioned it about the app, is to work, instead of paying a company whatever thousands of pounds for an app, use that app. The technology is there, rather than it being basic. Once you've got it going, then you look for an alternative.
All I would say is that the application for the money that we get as the bus service improvement plan was made across the partnership of organisations. We bid for government money, we had to tell the government what we were going to spend it on, and North Somerset alongside WECA got that money to spend on what we said we would do. Now we have to contract through certain procurement rules, and therefore we commission a company through that framework to develop an app. We can't simply then say actually we'll leave that one and we'll do something else, partly because the public would probably quite rightly say, well, what have you spent money on developing an app for if you're now going to go and do something else?
But you're just about to change Westlink yet again. So it's 6 months on.
We can talk about Westlink, but Westlink is a trial, and when North Somerset and WECA went into that trial, it was done so that we would learn and experiment through the trial in order to make it commercially viable, or as close to at the end of the trial, so we could continue to offer some form of transport to people who would never have a commercially viable bus service. So because otherwise we have to pick and choose between the services that we might support and the services that we don't, because I can't, with the best one in the world, there will never be enough council tax in this world to be able to fund a bus service for every single community that asks me for one. And I can assure you that there are many, many communities that have the only bus service that they have is Westlink currently. So we really want to make that work, or to understand how we can at least support some form of access for those people. Now, Westlink is only 6 months old. We wouldn't have expected to get it all right first off, and absolutely, I'm coming on to talk about Westlink, and it may be that we want to get some views and feedback before I do that. But it has just gone through a process. There is a 3-monthly review at each stage through Westlink, which is done by the officers in WECA, working with our North Somerset officers. Since the last meeting, we've had the first 3-month review that's picked up a number of the pieces of feedback that you've been giving us about Westlink, that's checked that with the data that we've got from the providers, and told us that actually we need to make some changes if it's going to be viable, not just if it's going to be viable, if it's going to do what people want it to do. Now, I appreciate that means things change, but actually we want these things to work, and we're talking about new sorts of services. So we could just carry on with the same model for 2 years, and at the end of it we would lose it.
But we provided you, that all aboard the 56 provided you with high detail of what the public wanted. And you've already talked about Western and the Port's Edge to Western link and Yatton being a slight bit of a problem. But if you had listened to us in the first place, that would have incorporated the Westlink service. But you said we can't have a scheduled service, so you said we can only have a demand service. And I agree, okay, so we'll use a demand service.
But going back to the app, so if the app's telling you where that bus is going, why can't other people demand that same bus? Why does it only have to be one or two? I mean, one or two people taking a 30-minute drive, costing what the driver at a cost of £13–14 an hour, the bus, the fuel, the ANPR, the tracking system, the ANPR system.
Okay,
It's a massive cost for just two people, and then that's what I said. You're throwing money down the drain every day.
There are a number of things I could talk about around what's coming out of the 6-month review, but I'm conscious that we're in a two-way dialogue here, and there are probably lots of other people in the room who've got some.
Yes. I mean, I'm also mindful of the time. I was hoping to wrap this up by 9.
Can I just put one
just
more
briefly.
comment in? Yeah, briefly, to issue a direct appeal to Hannah and Neil. So when you have your discussions and your negotiations about the X10, can you keep the alternative in mind, which is a 2-hour journey into Bristol and out again? That is no alternative. We need the X10.
Can I just ask for a show of hands? Who's used Westlink? Oh, it's pretty good.
But it's a disaster.
Can I just do can I show of hands of anyone that's got anything good to say about Westlink?
I have.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm surprised. I think
That's the only reason I'm here.
I have.
Okay, good.
But as we've heard from Hannah, I mean, it's still in experimental stages.
Just one small point.
One small point, yes, because I want to just briefly mention
Can I
other
just
things.
thank Neil for arranging the X10 to go through Sheepway, because that was
You're welcome.
that was the last time we met up. I
Yeah.
believe it was missing Sheepway.
Yeah.
I'm sure the people in
It
Sheepway
was.
are quite appreciative of that. Thank you.
That's fine.
Okay.
I just, we're from all aboard the 56 bus group, okay, there's a whole front row of us here, including Bob. We've worked extensively, I think, for North Somerset and with North Somerset to try and get a service that is viable. Many of us live in Walton Bay, and unlike you people from Portishead, we wouldn't have a bus service at all, and didn't for a while, if we didn't get Westlink. Westlink, when we got Westlink in the first place, we were told that it would be a service that could pick people up and drop people off pretty much at their doorstep. Okay, we're finding that's not actually the case. We have been going out advocating for Westlink whenever we can, and even I, who am chair of All Aboard the 56, have gone pretty much from being an advocate for the bus, where we want to be again, okay, and to get people using the buses, because I think, to go in actually the opposite direction, because there are so many people from our area that are now no longer using the bus because it is just not reliable. It doesn't turn up at times, it's left people stranded at times. Okay, so the buses just disappear off the face of the earth, never to be seen. You can make comment whatever you like to Westlink themselves, and all they do is send you back something that says thank you for your communication. It would be nice to hear something positive, pretty much. But to be quite honest, we have tried really, really hard. And one of the things that we actually advocated in the first place, which is what Bob was talking about earlier, to North Somerset Council, we did extensive research. We went down into Clevedon Town Centre and asked people what they wanted down there. We went and stood in all winds and weathers in Portishead and Clevedon doing the same thing. And we found people all along the way, really, at this point in time, wanted a local bus service that really ran between Portishead and Clevedon. They didn't really want to go too much further. Some wanted to go on to Yatton, some wanted to go to the airport, but not everybody did. Most people wanted to really travel between Portishead and Clevedon. Portishead doesn't have a post office now. Okay, some of the banks have gone. The banks that they want are now in Clevedon. Okay, a local health centre is in Clevedon, and vice versa. So people just want to travel between those two, and if they then want an onward journey, they can get them from there. Now we have tried to get that through. That's been over a year. We've been sending that information through. It's still not happening. The latest changes in the zones we were extremely concerned about, because when this new zone was sort of semi-proposed, it's not yet defined, I understand it, but it suggested that Walton Bay, our area, where most of us are from, would be on the periphery of both the Clevedon and the Portishead group. So we could either choose to go to one or the other. Okay, we couldn't necessarily travel between both, and neither could anybody else. So this is the difficulty that we have. Okay, so yes, DRT has its problems. Yes, we want to support it. But one of the things that I think is essential to understand here and get through to First Bus is that if DRT is successful, they will be bringing in people to catch the X5, the X10, the X4. At the moment, we've got a mile walk. For many people over 50 in Walton Bay area, we live on a hill like that, okay? Most people move down there in their 50s and have eventually got, like me, to the 70s, 80s even, and they can't get out of their buildings. They cannot get up the hill to the bus stop. We were told that it could come down. We've been talking to Hannah just recently about getting that resolved. There are people in there in absolute misery because they can't get out to social occasions or doctors or anything like that, simply because there is no bus, they can no longer drive. On top of that, I would like to add in, briefly, for the disabled, the current way of thinking, and I noticed in the North Somerset Times this week a guy talking about housing and those sort of things, okay, was actually saying that a lot of the North Somerset online communications do not meet the requirements of elderly people, people with disabilities. The same goes for Westlink. Okay, basically, if you can't use a telephone properly for yourself, if you can't use the internet properly, if you can't do emails even, and a lot of people can't, if you can't understand the technology or do not have access to it simply because you're in poverty, you cannot use these services. And that is really meaning that what you're doing is excluding people rather than including people. And that is not just people of age or whatever, it's people with learning difficulties. It's all those sort of people. And one day, I would bet you any money, one day somebody in here will suffer from dementia or something like that, or begin to, and then they will not be able to remember their PINs for their bank cards, they won't be able to do these things. This is a big, big issue, and it shouldn't be passed over. It certainly shouldn't be passed over for transport services, because it means that those people become totally isolated. They might be fit and able to walk and do that sort of thing, but they can't use the services because they can't use the internet.
Thank you, I appreciate your points. Okay, last speaker over there.
Thank you. Thank you. Well done. I thought I would support your comments. I have twice in the last 4 weeks tried to take a return trip to Nailsea to use because I'm a Parkinson's issue. We have a gym exercise group there. Twice I've tried to book. I've succeeded the first time, but it was by hook or by crook. Because I was told to meet in one place at Redcliffe Bay, but the bus went to another. Yeah. Fortunately, the driver phoned me, and I was able to point out the gap between us, and he was able to come and pick me up. When we got to the gym there, I highlighted the stuff that they sent me on the email, on the telephone, was contradictory, because they told me to meet at the bus stop. No, sorry, they didn't say the bus stop. At the road past the gym, but there was no bus stop in the immediate area. In fact, it was all hatched and anyway, I had to flag him down. But fortunately, I spotted him and he flagged down. So at least I got there and got back in reasonable times. But this last week, last Wednesday, anyway, let me cut it short. I got there okay, but coming back, the bus driver telexed me or messaged me that he was, because I wasn't there, he'd left, and that was timed at 2:27. My slot appointment was 2:30 to 2:50 pickup time, so he'd gone, and it was then time for the kids to come out of school and all the other things. Anyway, I rang them immediately, and they couldn't get somebody to come back for me. In the end, I was high and dry. I pleaded with them to give some support, but they told me to get a taxi, and so there I'm. Eventually, the leisure centre there contacted the taxi company and managed to get one, but the whole experience was quite shattering.
Yeah, sorry to hear that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think just very briefly I'll move on.
Can I come back on some of those Westlink points?
Well,
sorry.
Yeah.
I think you'll find quite a lot of us have come down to talk about Westlink, so I don't think it's fair to just shuffle us off.
Well, I'm not specifically doing that. I just felt that when the meeting's getting to.
If I could just really quickly, I have already obviously received from some of you a lot of feedback around Westlink already. If anyone else has any feedback they'd like to speak to me direct about, I'd very happily take a call or come back and meet people on a different occasion, less formally. I suspect the things that you will say are things that I've heard are other people's experiences too, so not to undermine what you've said at all, but we have had similar feedback, as well as some good feedback about Westlink.
But there was a lot of denial.
And what I would say, so Carl and Christopher, who are the parts of the team that Neil is in, who deal more directly with Westlink, in the same way that Neil, when he gets feedback from people, is raising it with First Bus, others in the team are doing that around Westlink. So the message is the same for Westlink, that please do. I appreciate you probably just get an email back saying thank you for your comment.
A very bland, non-committal statement.
Yeah, but it's logged, and that's really important to us.
But
so we appreciate you doing that.
It?
It's logged on the Westlink system, and we ask for that data, and we get the data about how many things are being logged with them, and we can get the detail of that too.
Well, I mistrust if they're leaving it 2:27. When I'm told 2:30, where is the driver? Is he abusing the system and knocking off or something, or something's suspicious?
I think that's maybe something I could take away, but just because it seems we are short of time, then just in the broader sense of what's happening next, because the service currently is not good enough. That's quite clear, So the question, and I don't want to skate over all of these issues because there are many of them, but in terms of what's happening next. One of the reasons that there are difficulties in the reliability of the service, and also the numbers of people who are able to book the journey that they want when they want it. So at the moment we've started to get figures back from Westlink, and it shows that at least a third of the time, if you're trying to book a journey, you'll get that little message saying actually there's nothing available for you. So that's not good enough. And what happened over the summer was we didn't have enough drivers, we weren't getting enough vehicles out. That improved a little bit, and then it took a bit of a dip in performance in this area in the early autumn, because other areas were using Westlink more. So one of the things that we then looked at was, and you've said it yourself, sir, a lot of the time the buses are either empty because they're travelling to pick someone up, or they're certainly not taking.
What I'm saying is, if that information, you're paying massive amounts of money for an app. If that app is providing you that information, then use that more wisely.
So if I may, we've looked at the data, and the proposal is that the zones are too big at the moment, and vehicles are travelling too far, and they're spending a lot of time coming back and going all around the area to try to pick up passengers and take them to where they want to go. To be fair to the North Somerset team, they always wanted the service to be set up with smaller zones, a bit more akin to what we've talked about. People here want to travel more locally. A few people might want to travel right to the other side of Bath or wherever, but not, most people would be happy having a more local service. And so what we need to do is to rework the service so that you get buses that are working all locally in a smaller area. We anticipate the benefits of that would also be that the drivers would know more about the local area because they're not going all the way to the other side of North Somerset and then coming back again. I keep doing that, sorry. So there have been a couple of different proposals you might have heard of, because the discussions, again, a lot of this is a similar thing that we're negotiating, we're working with WECA, we're trying to work out what's the best way to have those, whether it's zones and so on in future. Carl originally said, should we have a 5-mile limit, for example? WECA then were favouring a zones model. There's been a draft that has been shared with some people, and we shared it online at an event that we ran recently, to have smaller zones, which is what Dave here has talked about. What is currently happening is you might have received a Westlink survey. So I would really, really, really strongly encourage everybody, please, please, please fill in that survey, because what I said as soon as I saw anything about the change of zones was we have to get feedback from people about where they want to travel and really understand that. And if you've already completed that survey, you'll see there's a question in the middle of it about where is it that you're wanting to go to, and what are the sorts of journeys that you want. Is it leisure? Is it that you need to get to the hospital and so on? Because really, for it to be effective in future, we're strongly of the view in North Somerset that that service should be there for the people who most need it, who need to access, who don't have the option of a main bus route, who need to access really key services, and we need to configure it in such a way that it delivers that. So
I answered that survey, and I've done about 15 pages on my phone of it, answering all these questions. And in the end, I got so fed up, I just packed it in. It was about 15 times on my phone, like that. And I was answering all the questions, and I thought, how far is it? And I went like that, and it was going and going and going.
It's not a novel.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, and I do really appreciate if people do get a chance to, because I mean, one of the things that's come up tonight, isn't it? Most people might want to go between Portishead and Clevedon. If we set the zones up like that, I immediately get queries from people saying, I want to go to Nailsea, I can't get to Nailsea, how can I do that? So it's really important we know what are the journeys that we need to be able to let.
But if you've got, as I understand, so you've got 16 buses on Westlink for this area. So if you're running, even if you're just running one bus from Portishead to Clevedon and back, and that's what I said, you don't have to physically make a schedule, but that bus would have to travel on Clevedon Road more than likely. So anyone that should be able to join onto that app and do it. And it's the same with going, if you have one going from Clevedon to Nailsea, it's going to be on that main road, so everyone should be able to. That puts more passengers on that Westlink, 16-seater bus, rather than just having 1 or 2 passengers taking 20 minutes or 30 minutes. So, it's the cost, it's massive.
But the way the service will need to operate in future is that we are linking people in ways that they couldn't otherwise travel. So I looked at the Westlink the app before I came here this evening. Where I live in Clevedon, I can't get a Westlink to Portishead, quite rightly, because there are scheduled services that enable me to get to where I need to get to. And what we had with Westlink before was people getting the option on the Westlink bus, not everybody, because some people don't have access to a scheduled service, but if it takes me 6 minutes to walk to a bus stop where I can get a main bus to Portishead, and yet I'm choosing a Westlink, I'm taking that service away from somebody who might need to use it because they don't have a scheduled bus. Now the app has been changed, and I do hope, please, if you haven't downloaded the new app, if you're someone who uses apps, and I take Dave's point, I think there's a lot to be said around what we need to do in future for people who are currently digitally excluded and need more support around how we work in other ways. But please do download the most recent version of the app. You'll see it has changed so that it offers you the scheduled service if there is one that's within the reasonable time that you're wanting to travel, and so on. And that's very much to make sure that Westlink is available for people who really need it. And so it might not be for some people, and we do get some good feedback from people who use Westlink who say it's great, I got it here and I went there and I had a great service. but you think, oh my goodness, that's a huge amount of resource for one person. We need to make sure it goes to the
Because
right
the thing
places.
about offering an alternative is, like I live right up the top of Portishead, so in order to get on the X5 to go on the scheduled route to Clevedon, I've already got to get the X4 down, and then they don't actually meet without a bit of a gap in the middle. So although in principle and on paper it looks like everybody in Portishead can get on the X5 to go to Clevedon or further, it doesn't always work out like that.
No, and I think certainly for the Walton Bay area, I wouldn't expect that would be the answer, because you don't have that option. You don't have that option.
Okay, thank you. Do we feel as though we've kind of covered the West Link? Good. Briefly, bus shelters. Portishead Town Council owns about 20 odd, and I've surveyed them all with a view, hopefully, of upgrading some of them. We're hoping to get some BSIP money into Portishead to have some new shelters, and any feedback from you as an audience and people in town to perhaps say it'd be nice to have a shelter here or upgrade this particular one. I mean, the one I use currently is opposite the co-op and it's in a bit of a dire state. Maybe we could paint them, repaint them, get some advertising notice boards on the back, give some, there's big space on the back of the bus shelter, so we could use that more productively. But yeah, any feedback? I mean, as individual units, they're very expensive, but if you end up buying about 6 of them, then they obviously bring the price down. So we're looking into that, hoping to get some money and progress that. Okay, a couple of people on the bus shelters then, hopefully.
Just a couple of things on the shelters. Bob has mentioned it before about advertising on the shelters, which I think you obviously are understanding. And
yes, I've had a lot of conversation about it with Bob.
And a couple of things that we have said about Westlink, and I know that users of Westlink have found numbering or identifying the buses clearer than the number plate. For a lot of people who've got difficulties, is a must. Okay, just put a big sheet of paper in the front with number 1 bus, if that's your bus coming along.
We use the flag post.
And the other thing is the actual bus stops in Portishead. I sent some pictures through to Bob yesterday, actually last night, and on those I'd gone round and photographed the bus stops to show where it says is, say, I know that stop D, for instance, is right outside Iceland. Okay, it used to be called the White Lion stop. Okay, no, the White Lion's gone, it can't really be. And then there's stop C is the opposite side of the road. Now I'm a fairly fit young 70-year-old really. My eyesight ain't too bad. And I could not see anywhere where it told me it was bus stop D
I would
or
agree
bus
with you
stop E.
entirely.
And it's actually on the timetables, and it's about that big. Okay, and sometimes I got told by one person, it's at the top on the bus stop sign, and I looked and I couldn't see it. So if you're going to redesign the bus stops and the shelters, can you put a big letter saying A, B, C, D, E, or whatever along Portishead High Street? Out in Walton, doesn't matter. We've got a post with a little notice board on that shows a really pathetic, and we've talked about this, a pathetic advert for Westlink, which is in green. You've got a little QR code. Nobody notices it. Okay, nobody notices it, and I know that Weka have had a bit into this. All I can say is their advertising guy in Weka needs a kick up the butt and out the door. Nobody notices anything that's put in green because it's so passive. I know the idea is to make everybody use green technology and use the buses because you want your out of cars, but trust me, that is a bad decision.
Thank you. One at the back.
Just briefly, with the number of buses going in and out of Sainsbury's, please can we have a bus shelter by the bus stop then?
Well, this is to be in my bonnet, but I'm assuming it's Sainsbury's land. It's their responsibility.
So how do we get permission? How do
we need to put pressure on Sainsbury's. I admit I've not yet been to speak to anyone.
Can I answer that? I've is spot on. We can't because it's Sainsbury's land.
I guess that.
Sainsbury's car park. It's still on my list. I haven't given up. I personally think that you need a raised curb in there as well. Because it's almost like, I've seen people get on and off there, and some of you, bless you, it looks like you're sort of abseiling when you get off the bus. So I think it needs more than a bus shelter, to be honest, but unfortunately it's not a gift to give because it's private land. I'll keep working on that. I'd also like to come back to your point about the bus stops. There is a wider plan to change all of the bus stops across the whole district. In the meantime, I've been changing damaged stops and stops that have been trashed. I believe there's one at the top of Nor Road that was outside a house that, you know, and there's a lot of stops that don't have, so like for example, if the pole's gone, it hasn't got a cage, you know, the bus stop bit painted on the road. I've been going through a list of doing that. I've currently got 39 on that list, which are currently being worked through by a contractor. So we're getting there. And the question with you about the ABCD, we have the same problem at Whirl Interchange, where they're lettered ABCD, and I live in North Whirl, and it took me months to work out which one was ABCD, because it doesn't tell you. I know which ones they are now, and going forward, when we do have that, I've actually proposed that we have almost like a massive dustbin letter on the bus shelter, not some silly little sticker that's stuck on the flag. It needs to be big enough so that people can see it, or you paint it on the road. Whichever is the better of the two. Personally, I think the sticker is the better option. Yeah. So that there is a plan to do that when shelters are upgraded, like we've discussed, and the flags. But in the meantime, until we agree something jointly with WECA, and it will be, it's meant to be green, isn't it, I think? It's going to be green like Westlink. Any damaged ones that you know of, take a picture, send it to the PT inbox, and I'll put it on my list. Or if it's one that is in a really bad state, or you think it needs something doing to it that's a quick fix. I'm the quick fix guy with the bus stops at the moment. So if there's anything you see, take a picture, send it to the PT inbox, I'll put it on my list, and hopefully I'll get it sorted.
Thanks, Neil. It surprises me. I mean, one thing you could do is go and speak to Sainsbury's if you haven't already done so.
I have,
because
yeah,
a lot of these supermarkets are shouting out with their green credentials, aren't they?
I know,
It surprises me they don't want to put a shelter there, or at the very least have an indicator board. I mean, yes, you know, if the worst comes to worst, you can shelter under there where the trolleys are parked. But
Or don't go in there, and then they won't have their shoppers going in there, won't they?
Can I just say one more thing about bus stops with regard to Westlink? And that's, I don't know if you know, but in the High Street, the only named bus stop that you can ask the bus to come to is at the precinct, and the rest of them are simply called Portishead High Street. Yeah, there's bus stops on both sides of the road, but when you try and pin it down and say, oh, the post office or Oxfam shop, you're only given the High Street.
So you're there, your bus arrives
yeah,
there,
so like
and
today,
you get left.
yes, and then you get that message to say you're not at the right place, but you're at one of the bus stops, but it hasn't come past, and now it's gone off to the next one.
The same happened in Nelson.
Yes,
Yeah, I was just
and
gonna
you're
say,
still,
exactly
you're
right,
still
yeah.
waiting. But there are lots of bus stops, so that can't be, you know, that I can't be the only person that happens to.
Happened to us for hour and a half.
Um,
It was absolutely boiling. Yeah, sweltering.
Sorry, when it comes to the bus stops, just a couple of things. Obviously, Dave's already mentioned about the lettering. The flag posts, they're big enough. I mean, a sticker for that's going to cost you like 30-40 pence. So, and a step ladder, and what they like 9 feet above the ground. So, step ladder is not exactly a long job, is it?
Tried doing that.
When it comes to bus shelters, can I please ask North Somerset, stop contracting them out for other companies to make profit, and you're making nothing. Perfect example is the High Street, lovely McDonald's everywhere. Obviously everyone wants to go to McDonald's, don't they? You know, one of the worst environmental companies in the world, and we're advertising, and you're getting virtually nothing from that, as I understand.
So it could be something that's run by North Somerset to benefit North Somerset and the transport system.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll look into the detail of that.
Thanks, thank you, Bob. Okay, Christine.
Further to the labelling of the bus stops, it would also be useful. Not everybody is a local in Portishead when they come to Portishead, and a lot of people do to the lake grounds in the summer. It would be useful to have a little map of where these bus stops are, so that if you're at bus stop A, and actually you need to be at bus stop
D, you actually know where it is.
Good point. Yeah. Okay.
Can I just jump in there? We have actually just produced a map, and if I'd have brought my brain with me today, I would have brought a box with me when I was in the office, because I've got about 15 of them. There are actually currently some available at all good libraries, railway stations and bookshops. They are a WECA map, and they cover all the bus stops, and they have town maps in them as well. So yeah, I should have brought one with me, but they've been delivered, like I said, to libraries. I took some myself to Yatton and to Whirl, and I know my colleague did this way, like Portishead, Scudeno, that sort of area.
Put them up in any bus stops.
Why can't you put them up in the bus stop?
That was on my
would be
list.
useful.
That is a good question. I don't have an answer for that.
We'll investigate that.
I'm not going to lie. I do have a little handheld map, did bring it with me, but yeah, that is something that I think could go, because I know on a lot of the bus timetables there's quite a big gap, isn't there, between, we've talked about this at length with WECA, who produce our timetables for us now, so I'll have to remember to make sure that I mention that again, that so what you want is a town map in the timetable in the bus stop.
Well, just
so I'm clear.
If it says
Bus stop B or something.
bus stop B, a little map of the area with
Where
bus
it shows
stop
where
A
it
is in Coombe Road and bus stop B is...
That's what my little map does.
Yes, but my library isn't open when
Oh, is it
I
not? Oh,
want to
okay,
know.
that's awkward. All right.
Are there any other points that members of the public would like to raise, or anyone else for that matter? Okay. Would you like another meeting? Are they useful?
Yes.
It
Right.
depends who comes along though, doesn't it? No
Well,
disrespect. No disrespect to you. but
Well,
it's-
sadly,
it's
as you know,
it's
I need to
when
get,
you
I
have
promise
to
you I'll get first in.
When you keep
It would
saying,
be
oh,
nice
they
to
were
see
going to
Stagecoach
come.
and First Bus here, and obviously Westlink as well.
Yes.
do you want an evening meeting or an afternoon one?
Evening.
Can I make a plea that it is really hard for officers to attend in the evening? They do, I'm sure you appreciate there are lots of places that they do go to, but it is after a long day at work, and
Yes. We thought perhaps then we'll trial an afternoon, a late afternoon one.
Yep.
Sort of 4:30 or something like that. So we're looking at May, because if there's a timetable change in April, early April, then at least it gives a few weeks for it to bed in before we come and grice about it. So May the 9th, 16th or 23rd, so that's when we'll be looking for the next meeting. Does that suit you all, sort of thing? Okay, but you'll obviously get notification in the usual manner. Well, thanks ever so much for attending tonight. Thank you very much to both Hannah and Neil
Thank you
for
very much.
attending and being here.
I've remembered one last thing I did want to plug. We are looking for a date for the North Somerset First Bus User Forum. Obviously we're doing this locally, but we would really like to be able to get together at least some people who are from different areas of North Somerset and to get to understand.
Is this where us ambassadors are going to come?
Ambassadors, yeah, champions.
Yeah, because
Have
we
you got
haven't
a date
done
for that?
anything yet.
No, I'm really sorry, but I haven't got a date for it today. I've been trying to confirm it. We were hoping to do it in early December, but I'm awaiting news from one of the officers who's been on leave for a couple of weeks to know whether we've confirmed a date. I will let you know as soon as I know, but I would really love for people to have the opportunity to come to that forum if they would like to.
A public meeting?
Yeah, absolutely.
Public meeting, okay, so you'll be notifying Town Council here?
Yeah, absolutely.
And in turn then we'll put notices on the notice
absolutely.
boards? Okay.
And the purpose of that will be like this, but with other groups from all around North Somerset, and we'd love to do it over a sort of longer period and really get people's feedback about how we can get that ambassadors network really working and yeah, just get people's views on that too.
Can I just say one thing as well? The gentleman at the back, thank you sir, and could you give me the exact details of your misdemeanours with the X4 please? I didn't write it down, I was trying to listen, and I did say I want to get that, so if you can give me the exact details before I leave so I can pick it up tomorrow please, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you Amy for organising things as well, and great. See you in May. Thank you very much for coming.
Can I just say thank you for setting extra actually for putting these on because
Thank you. Appreciate your comment. Thanks.
Yeah, you look nice to meet you. You're all right, Bob? Yeah. Tell me. I didn't down.